conversation and explaining that to our viewers. With that, viewers, we're now going to move on to news now coming in from the West and the Americas. The U.S. Coast Guard is now actively pursuing an oil tanker near Venezuela in international waters, as per officials making the second such operation in the last 3 days. The vessel, which is identified as a very large crude carrier Bella 1, is now under U.S. sanctions and accused of evading restrictions while flying a false flag. President Donald Trump last week announced a blockade of sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers entering and leaving the country, part of a broader campaign to pressure President Nicolas Maduro. This follows earlier seizures, including the tanker skipper, which was black market operated. Analysts warn that these interceptions could escalate geopolitical risks and impact Venezuela's oil revenue. The U.S. officials say that domestic prices should remain stable. Oil markets responded with modest gains as traders weighed the potential for reduced Venezuelan export volumes. All right. And I'll request Dr. Rajan Kochar to join me in this discussion. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us from New Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Kochar, for joining me again in this discussion. Dr. Kochar, now the reason that's been cited for these increased, for the increased U.S. aggression in the Caribbean is to prevent the use of this oil trade for funding narcotic smuggling. Do you think that's really the reason, or a change in the regime in Venezuela is Trump's real objective?
Thank you, Preeti. A very, very searching question, because in my assessment, I don't think that's the real reason for anti-narcotics, because these kind of measures which the United States is incorporating actually do not have a legal sanction, because you are transgressing the exclusive economic zone of a country, and you are apprehending its revenue model. As a matter of fact, the supply chain, the entire supply chain is at risk today, and these are coercive measures largely to bring in a kind of political unrest within the country, is fueling the opposition parties to raise aspersions on the president of Venezuela right now. And so far, Maduro has been holding his ground, because he is not so far succumbing to US pressure. A larger issue is also that growing Chinese influence in Venezuela, because that is, I think, the prime reason why the United States wants to put a hold on this regime, because ultimately, I think there was even a talk in the United States of taking a military action against Venezuela.
Yeah.
So right now, I think that is on hold.
Yeah.
That is on hold, but I think the situation is slowly escalating, because this is the third oil tanker which has been intercepted by the US maritime forces.
Is it
And
intercepted already, or is
will-
it still being pursued? Just wanted a clarification on that.
You see, according to my information, it has been intercepted.
All right.
And
Yes.
this third this thing has been intercepted,
Yeah.
and uh, and it was being pursued earlier, and I think most probably it's a question of time. If it has not been intercepted, it will get intercepted, because two have already been intercepted in a similar manner. So I think what I am fearing is that these kind of coercive measures do not give a good image to the United States, because on one hand, if I compare the situation in the South China Sea, and if I see what China is doing in the South China Sea against the UNCLOS and all other sea maritime laws or conventions, uh, the United States is also resorting to the same kind of coercive measures against Venezuela. So, when on one hand the United States is severely critical of the way China operates in the South China Sea, I see a similar pattern which the United States is doing here, and I don't think that augurs well for the image of the United States, and especially the Trump administration is facing a lot of flack now because he has disturbed the relations with the Mexico, with Canada. All his neighbors are in a state of flux. So possibly we are looking for a much harsher measures now from the United States because Maduro is holding his ground. So let's see how far he can do it.
So China, Dr. Kochhar, has already voiced its support for Venezuela amid the US blockade, but it's not yet made any aid pledges. What really is holding back China from, like you said, having its military presence in the area and also for pledging aid?
See, China is playing a very, very cautious game here because China doesn't want to get into a direct confrontation with the United States because it will have its own repercussion in the South China Sea also. Because if you see the way the things are happening in the Indo-Pacific, and the AUKUS is also a strong alliance there in the Indo-Pacific, and the way things are developing in the Philippines and Japan, these are conflict zones in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. So I visualize that China right now does not want to get into a direct confrontation with the United States. It's biding its time. Things have not reached to a stage where possibly China may like to intervene.
All right, sure. In fact, that's also clear, I believe, from the US security strategy that was released. Doesn't really show China as the #1 enemy of the United States anymore. But Dr. Kochhar, thank you for giving your perspective. And viewers, we now move on. Now, ASEAN foreign ministers have arrived in Kuala Lumpur seeking to end the deadly border clashes between Thailand and Cambodia that have killed at least 40 people.